We'll do a review in the Sichas in Chelek Yotes. This is the Sicha for Tavo and Chai Elul. In this Sicha, the Rebbe discusses the fact that the Chai Elul comes out in the portion of Tavo. And the Rebbe brings out that the word Tavo means to really come in, to enter fully, as the Rebbe will explain. And that's the idea of both of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe in detail, to bring one in fully into his connection with Hashem, with his neshama, as the Rebbe will explain. That's the connection between Tavo and Chai Elul. Let's look and see inside. Aleph. So Chai Elul, the 18th day of Elul, is the Yom HaLedes von Shnei HaMeires HaGedolim, the birth date of the true great luminaries, which is der Baal Shem Tov. You have the Baal Shem Tov, the Meyaset von Teres Chasidus HaKlolis, the one who established the general teaching of Chasidus, and the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe's birthday as well, who is the Meyaset von Teres Chasidus Chabad. He founded the teaching of the Chabad Chasidus. So this is Alam Olchal B'Smichas. It always is very close to Shabbos Parshas Tavo, to the Shabbos of the portion that we read Tavo, other b'Shabbos Parshas Tavo Alein, or on the Shabbos of Tavo itself. And we bowed as alle Moyadei, since all festivals have a connection to the Torah portion in which you read them. So when we say Moyadei, miyuad, could be a moyad, a holiday, a set time, but this is a miyuad, meaning a distinguished time, a time with a special. So all moyad, the all distinguished time, as man mit aspel seln inhalt, a time that has a special meaning, which is Chai Elul, may not be a regular moyed as we're used to, a Yom Tov, as we used to call them the Mayadim L'Simcha, but it's still moyed in the context of a miyud. It's a unique time. So it's a moyed de Hashana. So all the special times of the year, seine merumas in the Parshas HaTorah was werden geleint, are hinted in the portion of the Torah that I read in these manim welchen sie sein chal, during the times that this Yom Tov comes out. So Chai Elul comes out next to Parshas Tavo. So there has to be a hint over here. Darf man sagen, so we have to say, as in Parshas Tavo is meruves, that in the portion of Tavo is hinted, Euch der Teuchen von Chai Elul, also the content of the day of Chai Elul, ubefrat, as wird angerufen, Yom Tov u'moyed ki yidu. It's known that it's called as a Yom Tov and a moyed, as the Rebbe references in the Sefer HaSichas, in Tavshin Hey from the previous Rebbe, that this is called a Yom Tov and a moyed. So we have to find a connection between that and the Parsha of Kisaveh. Base, the number for Unzer Sedra, the connection we're going to find in the name of the Parsha. What's the name of the Parsha? Bosinir is ongedaitet ki yidu the Teuchen von der ganze Sedra. As it's known in the name, it's hinted, it's pointed out the contents of the whole Sedra. That's why, that's something that the Rebbe has told us many times, that in the name of Tove, for example, is the whole Sedra. So let's look in the name to get some of the context of what the Sedra is about and see how it connects to Chai Elul. Is Ki Tove, actually it's called Ki Tove, but it's really Tove. Der Taich from Tove La'oretz. What does it mean, come to the land? It doesn't mean entering the land. Tove La'oretz means La'achar Yerusha V'Yeshiva. It is after you have inherited and after you're settled. Remember, the emphasis is that Tove coming doesn't mean when you first enter, it means after you inherit and you settle there. Unit nor in unser Parsha with the Pasuk is mefarish v'yirishtu v'yeshavtabo. It is the meaning of Tove not only in our Parsha, where the Pasuk clearly states, Ki sovei v'yorashtu v'yeshavtabo, but actually from here, Nov Chazal Zogan, as our sages of blessed memory say, as umatum v'yashtet ki sovei ki yotzebei, that every place, wherever it says ki sovei, Meintas lachar Yerusha v'yeshiva, what it means really is after you inherit and after you settle. It means whenever else in the Torah it says Tavoy, we learn from this Kisavoy, the Torah revealed it one time in our Pasha, but always. So when you see the word Tava, you know already that it means lachar Yerusha v'yeshiva. This is the taich for kitova b'chol mokem. This is the taich whenever place the Torah uses kitova you come. Is verstandig, is understood. Has megam, has gelernt es up from them was parat l'cha kosu bechem them lacha Yerusha v'yeshiva. So how do we know this? So we know it because in this pasuk, the pasuk specifically says lacha Yerusha v'yeshiva. But the name from that point on, the name Kisova already means that. From that is already, when you say, we learn it from the pasuk over here, it says but then that becomes the meaning of Tove. Tove means a full entrance. Not only does it mean, the Rebbe explains now, your full entrance, but it means the full entrance of Klal Yisrael. All of you. Nochman, further. Yerusha v'yeshiva, when we're talking about inheriting and settling, we're not talking about the inheritance and the settlement from individual. As noch den der Makum sein Chelek in Eretz Yisrael darf bringen Bekurim. That after he gets his portion in Eretz Yisrael, you have to bring Bekurim. So when you settle, no, it's not you as an individual. Nor the Yudalit Shonish Kovshem Cholo. We mean B'cholku. We're talking about the complete 14 years that you conquered and you distributed Gans Eretz Yisrael, the entire Eretz Yisrael. We already once explained the Diuk Loshe Rashi Notifums etc. The specific language, the precise language that Rashi uses in the beginning from our Sedra, Magich le'nischayvu b'bikurim ad shekovshas orad v'chlukuah. Rashi changes from the Lashon of the Pasuk and he writes, this teaches us that they have not been obligated to the Bikurim until the land was conquered and the land was distributed. It doesn't say, Zoknit al derech Lashon HaKosov, doesn't use the language the Pasuk says, La'achar Yerusha v'yeshiva, after settling and inheritance settling. Because that could mean your own personal ones. If you have a Rashtov, Rashi says, the meat is Rashi Madgish. Rashi emphasized as Virishta Yeshavta Bo. What does Virisha mean? The meant Kibush V'chiluk Haaretz. It means the conquering and distribution from ganzem land was of Genumen Yudalet Shona, which took 14 years. Ibn Mela. So, because we're saying that Tavoy includes all of Eretz Yisrael, so the Mela is Eich der Inyim Rashta V'Yeshavta Bo. So therefore, when we say this idea, Rashta V'Yeshavta Bo, which is part of Kisova, likt in Toich V'Vor Tavoy, is in the context of Tavoy. So when we say Tavoy, Tavoy means you and the whole community, everything after the total conquering. Why is that? Because when you say you come somewhere, you want to be fully there. Not just, you can only be fully there when you and the rest of Klal Yisrael are part of it. That is when we can say that you are fully there. The explanations. The richtiger Teich von Bia, the correct translation of coming is a reinkommen in Ganzen, is totally coming. Derech Maimer Chazal, similar to our sages saying a blessed memory, they say, if a person entered into the Beis HaMikdash not fully, that would not be considered that he entered the Beis HaMikdash. Even if there's a little bit lacking in his entrance, that is not have the true wholesomeness of entering, of coming in. The Torah says you have to come into the water to become clean. You have to immerse yourself fully. Can't even have one string tefillah. Even here has to be in the water when you're immersing. That's why Tavo means after you inherit and you settle. That's the only way that you really entered Eretz Yisrael fully. Von his yashus that you settled. That means that you came in. Nochmet. And furthermore, not only you yourself, because of the unity of Eden. His Kozmanes is not given the yashus von alle Eden. As long as not all Yidden settle, was Dorfen sein, they need to be in Eretz Yisrael. Felt euch in dem Tove von Yadridin, it's also lacking from the Tove of every Yid. Hagam, by him befrat is shown lachar Yerusha v'yeshiva. If you're talking as an individual, by him specifically, individually, he already settled. He already inherited from his portion, Chelek. And the far is the emes be in Eretz Yisrael. But you need everybody. You need all Yidden. So when is the true coming in Eretz Yisrael? That's after the conquering and distribution of all Eretz Yisrael. So the same idea the Rebbe says is the idea of Tove of Chassidus, both between the Alter Rebbe's yard side, the Baal Shem Tov's yard side. The entrance into Chassidus was done in a way of Tavoy, in their unique way, in Chassidus Klolis and Chassidus Chabad. This is the connecting piece between the portion of Kisavoy and Chayelu. The Oiftu from Teiros HaChassidus, the novelty of the teaching of Chassidus, which is Nizgale geworden durch den Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, that was revealed through the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, is as the avodah from Torah mitzvahs, that the service of Torah mitzvahs or getan werden in an oifun should be done in a way from Tavoi, enter, reingehen in ganzen in der avodah, to totally enter into the service. These, as bleibt nicht immer kein Nikude mentioned, to the extent that it doesn't even remain any point in the person, was in the Durginum mitzvahs kidlokamon, which is not penetrated and through with Torah mitzvahs, as will be explained later on. What's the two levels of the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov? Shame, the inyan from Tova is an Faran Tzvei Yonim, just like there is two aspects that are close to getting in from Tova. The general idea of coming and entering. The Pasuk says, Ki Savoy El Haaretz. And then the Protim and Eifun in them Tavoy, Yerishta v'Yeshavta, and also in the specific that you will inherit it and settle on it. So also in Chayelu we have a similar two ideas. Aleph, the Yom Haledes of Baal Shem Tov, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, the Miyasit from Teres HaChassidus HaKloli, the founder of the general teaching of Chassidus, and Beis, the Yom Haledes, the birthday from the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, the Miyasit from Teres Chassidus Chabad, the founder of Teres Chassidus Chabad. Was the Chelek solution say is what's the difference? Is Kapisgam is like the saying that my father-in-law, the Rebbe, said, as the Baal Shem Tov bewiesen wie man darf dienen dem Eibishter. Baal Shem Tov showed how one needs to serve Hashem. That is similar to the general idea of entering. That Alter Rebbe bewiesen wie kommen sein über Hashem, how one is able to be a servant of Hashem. Das heißt, darauf zu bringen, das bepoil, how to bring this down in actuality. And includes, and mainly, what does it mean in the details? But dugma to be rash to be similar to that, you will inherit it and you'll settle in it. It will come on Sifyud, as we'll see later on in Sifyud. Dal. Batman does verstehen behagdim hayedua will understand it by introducing that what is known as the Giluf of Teres HaChasidus Zachonot to be as a Mashiach. The revelation of the Hasidic teaching is a preparation for Mashiach's coming. When we see that enter from Mashiach to Baal Shem Tov, as we know, as it's known, the response of Mashiach to the Baal Shem Tov, that when is he going to come, as the Kshe mein Nesacha Chutza, is Osimad, that when your wellspring, the wellsprings of Mashiach, of the Baal Shem Tov will disseminate to the outside, that's when Mashiach will come. State in Sifrei Kabbalah, so it's written in the Kabbalah Svarim, as bis HaMashiach sein alle Geluim in Welt, nor von Chitzonius Atik, that until Mashiach comes, all the revelations in the world come from the externality of the level of Atik. Mashiach wird öfter der Gilui von Pnimius Atik. Mashiach will accomplish the revelation of the inner of Atik. The Baal, okay, so that means basically we are waiting for Mashiach's coming to get the inner of Atik versus the Chitzonis Atik, which is only until the time of Mashiach. We can't get Pnimius Atik. But we know that Mashiach is coming because of the teaching of Chassidus, like Shafur and said Chutzo. So that means that the teaching of Chassidus has a aim of the Gilu Pnimius Atik, because that brings about the coming of Mashiach. Bald as Achone, hatten sich am Ein von dem Inyan zu welchen is Achone. Since a preparation contains in itself somewhat of the idea what it's preparing for, darf man sagen, we have to say, as der Öftung von Chassidus is der Inyan von Pnimis, the Chassidus accomplished the level of inner, the Pnimis, in Avodas Adam B'Torah Mitzvahs, in the service of a person, Torah Mitzvahs, to accomplish the Pnimis. And the far is Chassidus, Mamshich the Pnimis von Elokus, and that's why it draws down the inner of godliness, which is the Pnimius Atik, the inner of Atik. That's why Chassidus, which is a preparation, brings down the Pnimius Atik, which will come down when Mashiach comes. Hey. The Chiluk zwischen Pnimius and Chitzonis and Pashtus by a mention. What's the difference between the inner and the externality and the simple by a human being? Pnimius means the mensch is la'atzmi. Pnimius means as the person is by himself. Und Chitzonis, externality, there steht b'shayches how he is standing as he connects to chutz, to outside, to azulas, to someone else. Was is oisad him, which is outside him. Pnimius is the person himself. Chitzonius is how he impacts, how he's revealed, how he connects to other on the outside. The nafki minute what would be the difference between it? The service of person is the person's services in his pnimius, or the person's service is external chitzonius. When I mentioned tutazach nor mitzayin chitzonius, when a person only does with his externality, is a nitarangiton in dem and ganzen etzem, then he's not invested in his with his in it with his full essence, upnimius, with his inner. Nor blois, but he's only mitzayin chitzonius, only with his externality. Un in dem gufa, and even with his externality, nor the madrega in im basot hashayches to inyam basins chutzim. Only in that level that's within the person that connects to the idea that's outside him. That's the level which it touches you, only in your externality and in that level that you need to connect to the thing that is outside you. That's why you and the thing you are doing, you're two separate things. You're still separate, because it's not really you. It's just external you. And the external you is not you. You're not really invested. You're not connected. You don't connect with it. So the you and the item that you're doing are separate. Shas, or what I mentioned, mit sein Pnimius, but when you're doing it with your inner, is that reingetan in them, then he's invested in it. Or if Vibaldas mit sein Pnimius in the talking art, perhaps versus chutzim, because from your inside there is no room. There's nothing outside. It's just he in where he is himself. So it turns out, when you're doing even something specific, a detail, but you do it with your inner, one essence, your essence, so whatever you're doing becomes one with you. It becomes one like you. And this is what Chassidus accomplished when we do in the world. You should do a pnimius, not just with a chitzonis, not separate, but it becomes one with you. This is also the accomplishment, the novelty of the teaching of Revelation Chassidus. Chassidus, or Bechlolus Pnimis HaTorah, Chassidus, and generally speaking, this is the Pnimis HaTorah because it's all Pnimis, the inner. We call it the soul of the Torah. The soul is Megala the Nekudas HaChayis. That reveals the point of the energy in the person. From a Yidden in all in Yom Torah mitzvahs. From a Jew in everything Torah mitzvah that he does. It becomes alive, it becomes a neshama, it becomes a chayis. What does chayis do? Because the tchuna for chayis, when you say level is does as those vert vereinzigt. Chayis unites, becomes one with the item that he gives life to. The life force with what he makes alive become one. Chayis is the moisif kenaya pratim. Life does not add new details in the zachvaser balept, in the item, in the matter that he revived, that he vitalizes. In a guf chay, in a living body, zayin mitfaran merere vorim, in a guf meis, there is no more limbs in a living body than there is in a dead body. Chayis doesn't add limbs. Chayis bepoil is nit kein basundere Zach from dem was left. When you actually, the actual life force is not something different, is not separate from what it vitalizes. Das is the neshama from the guf from the malaptim. It becomes the soul of the body from the one that is made alive. Yet the nekuda from guf, every aspect, every point of the body is a lebedik, and the kuda becomes a point that is alive. On the time of them is, what's the reason for that? Well, chayis is the neshama of pnimis mentioned because chayis is the soul and the inner of the person. And therefore, in an ord chayis kumton, in a place where chayis comes, it reaches there, it penetrates, it takes through the place totally. Those are the Oiftu from Chassidus, the meaning of Torah mitzvahs. And this is the accomplishment, the novelty of Chassidus, what it accomplished in Torah mitzvahs. The limud ha-Torah and kiyum mitzvahs can zayin in an oifen. One is able to study Torah and fulfill mitzvahs in such a way as that the Torah mitzvahs that the Jew and the Torah mitzvahs remain two separate aspects. Even when we talk about studying Torah, what happens through limud ha-Torah? Durch dem Wert, wie wir in Tanya is explained in Tanya. Comes this wondrous union, this fusion. There's no such a fusion, no such a yichud, to be really one when the person learns Teichel, the Seichel Maskil, mit Neibishnu with Hashem. He says, that's only your intellect becomes one. Chassidus aber montum beweis, but Chassidus demands and shows the Weg, also jeder kann megala sein, Pnimius und Chayis, that each one can reveal the inner and the vitality. Mitzad Pnimius is a Yid ein Zach mit Torah mitzvahs. Is inside the Yid is one thing with Torah mitzvahs. So it's not that your intellect, the study of Torah makes you, but shows that each individual can reveal themselves to be one with Torah mitzvahs. Zion. Das ist auch das Border, but der Chefshe from us Chassidus is the honor to be as a Mashiach. One can possibly explain why Chassidus is the preparation for the coming of Mashiach, when es wird nes Galav and Pnimis Atik, when the inner of Atik will be revealed. Alle Madriges von Ishtalshus, all levels of the Ishtalshus, bis Chitzonis Atik, until the externality of Atik, geben an Ort for a Metzies, was is Chutz von Asmusis Borech. They give space for existence, which is outside of the blessed Atzmus, Hashem himself. When the Riber, Afilu ben Zeverim is Galim Welt, and therefore, even when they are revealed into the world, he says, Als in an Eufen, it's all in a way, as is nicht Shoilo betachlis the Metzius from Welt. It doesn't reject totally the existence from world. It's outside of Atzmus, so therefore it allows, it's not the Atzmus himself, but Pnimius Atik under Hazayin, mean the Etzem von Elokus, that means the essence of godliness. Because Mitzadim is the talking order for Ebbes. From the perspective of Pnimius Atik, there is no room for something which is outside of it. And therefore, when Pnimius Atik wird misgale in Eulamis, the inner of Atik is revealed in the world, is as in an oifen, it's in such a way as Welt so that the world in its existence, together with godliness, ein Zach, ein Muvadid. One thing, there's nothing besides Hashem. Because when Pnimius Atik is Nizgala, that's the essence. In the essence, there could be nothing else. And therefore, this is ein Muvadid. So it's not something outside. And now the Rebbe will explain the two levels of Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus HaKlos. In the vitality of a person that expands into the body, there's two levels. All of the Chayis Kloli was Beledam Ganzen Guf, the general energy which revives, vitalizes the entire body. Mit Allah Zaynevorim B'Shove, all limbs equally. In them chayis in the talking chilik for never business. In that energy, that vitality, there's no difference between one limb and another one. Base number two is the chayis proti versus oizgimosten. You have the specific energy which is measured in jeden ever lezanet chunas, every limb according to its characteristic. Was mitzad them chayis, that chayis from that perspective, where the regel there, the heel of the foot, angerufen der Malach HaMoves Shabbat, we call him the angel of death in the person, because that energy does not shine openly. So that means there's a big difference. It's called the Malach HaMoves. There's a lack of any light of it. There's Neumar. We can say as the Unterschied zwischen the Chayis HaChasidus, the energy of Chassidus is Nimshach when is Gale geworden durch den Baal Shem Tov. That vitality of Chassidus that extended and revealed through the Baal Shem Tov. Und der Chayis was is Nimshach when is Gale geworden durch den Alten Rebbe, the energy and the vitality that extended to the Alten Rebbe. Is a derech chiluk zwischen the Tzoyef and the Chayis is similar to the difference between these two types of Chayis. Der Baal Shem Tov hat Megala given Achayus Klol in Torah mitzvahs. Baal Shem Tov revealed a general energy in Torah mitzvahs. But the Chlolus hat sich das ausgedrückt, the meaning from it. Generally, it's expressed itself in the idea of belief. Und Hagam as der Koyach Hamuna nimmt durch alle Koyachas HaNefesh. And although the power of belief penetrates, takes through all the powers of the soul. And poilt auf in an Eufem von Chayis. and it does impact them in a way of energy. The Amunah becomes the energy, was nimmt sie durch den Ganzen. That totally encompasses them, totally what goes through them. The tzaddik with his Amunah lives, which means the Amunah brings life. Meint es aber nicht, as the Chayes Amunah doesn't mean, however, that energy of the Amunah nimmt durch jeden koyach euch mit tzaddik proti, that power of Amunah can take, penetrate every individual power in its own individuality, in its specific idea, what it is that limb. But it's the general idea that every power has, which is tied to the point of Amunah of the soul. Similar to the general vitality which penetrates through all the limbs and becomes united with them. It's not connected to that specific idea of that limb. It's a general vitality, but not a vitality specified to that particular limb. Nor within the kuda close from Alevorim, but the general point, which all are part of the limbs, Zanatil from Gufon, they're part of that human body. That was the Malsentum, Amunah. The Rebbe, our Mamshech Given Achayis, Jeden Koyach from the Neshama. The Alter Rebbe brought down an energy in every power of the soul. Onoichin Yad Rabbeid in Torah Mitzvahs, also in every service Torah Mitzvahs. Oich Mitzadem Teuchen Proti from the Koyach, also from the specific contents of that power. Derech Vidachayis Proti. Similar to this individual energy, vitality, vos is Muslim, which is measured, like which is measured according to the specific idea of every limb. Because the Faris is verbunden mit Chabad. That's why it's connected with Chochmah bin Adas. Seichel is the Peula from Seichel. Seichel on the Peula of Seichel, because the intellect and what Seichel accomplishes is the Teufel sein, the Protzim Ktsovish and the Muskel is by grasping the detail. Those are the corners of the idea. In a way that it dresses up in the powers of the soul. And impacts them in an inner way. Also because of the specific, individualized content of that power. So the Amunah vitalizes everything as a whole. This is specific to the energy, the Chassidus Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, to the specific koyach, to specific power of that particular Eiver. Oistes. So the Rebbe explains now that it seems like the Chayis Proti is on a lower level, but yet, actually, this brings out the ultimate test. Agam as the Chayis Proti is lechoyre an nidrike dargin Chayis with the Chayis Kloli. Even though that it seems that the individual Chayis seemingly is on a lower level than the Chayis Kloli, Vorum Aleph, number one, it is Bagrenitz Chayis, it's a limited Chayis. The Baal that is Oizgemostum like Never, since it's measured by that limb, so that means that he's more measured. Bay is the Bittel from Ever zum Chayis. And number two is that subjugation from the limb to the Chayis, to that individual Chayis, is nit as that tiefer Bittel. It's not such a deep Bittel as the Balda der Chayis git an Ort for an Inyan Aprot from the Mever, since that energy allows for that specific idea of that limb, so it's not so bottle is over Farana Maile in the Chayis Proti of Chayis Kloli. There is an advantage in this individual Chayis over the general chayes. This as in to the extent that it accomplishes something new. Those goof of his chayes clothing is not verbunden mit inyan aprot to be a neighbor. That fact itself, that the general chayes is not tied with that specific idea of each limb, is abavais. That is a proof as in him drikt sich nitois the shleimus achayes mamish, that in him does not express the wholesomeness of the chayes mamish. Because der Far nimmt er nicht durch euch the minyan aprot dem ever. That's why he cannot penetrate also that specific item of the aver. Davki in the chayes proti, specifically in this individual chayes, was nem durch the evorim mitzad zerin and proti. That takes through the limbs from their specific aspect. Und in an Eifen von chayes, in the way of vitality, was nem sie durch den ganzen. That penetrates them fully. That expresses the true wholesomeness of chayes. Now, Derech says when he gave to Chassidus Chabad, the same thing is with the teaching of Chassidus Chabad. Davke durch them was the Alter Rebbe Mamshir given them chayes from Chassidus, specifically from the fact that Alter Rebbe extended the vitality of Chassidus in the protik hanefesh lezer teuchen, in the specific powers of the soul according to their content, each individually according to their specifics. Then he brought down completely, wholesomely the Torah Baal Shem Tov. That's why, because of that wholesomeness, also the details of the koiches are also penetrated with the chayes of Chassidus. Yud. This is also the connection between the Chayel and Parshas Tove. The Chayes kloli from Torah's Chassidus klolis. The general Chayes of the teaching of the general Chassidus is nirmes neminyan from Tavo was main canal singular kommen ganzen. That is in the Tove means to come in totally. In the Aveda for Torah mitzvahs, that Torah mitzvahs should fully engage you. The pnimius. But those inside the Nekutz Chayes, what Torah's Chassidus gitarein in the Aveda for Torah mitzvahs. That is the point of Chayes, that the teaching of Chassidus gives into the service of Torah mitzvahs. But then we have to draw down the general chayes in the Prata Keiches Atzman, in the specific detail of the Keiches themselves. But das meint wie Rashta v'yashafta, but you inherited and you will settle. From Chassidus, you bring down this general energy of Chassidus in a hisyashvus in a settled way. The Prata Keiches HaNefesh, the specific powers of the soul, this is durch Torah's Chassidus Chabad. This is through the teaching of Chassidus Chabad. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Tovei, Chayel Tavshin Lamed and Tavshin Lamed Gimel.